What if I told you the smallest coin in your pocket could be worth more than a brand new car? Millions of Americans have spent these pennies without knowing the truth. Old dirty 1-cent coins hiding massive value. Some were made by mistake. Some were struck in copper when they should not exist, and some were pulled straight from pocket change and sold for life-changing money. In today's video, you are going to see top old valuable rare US 1-cent penny coins. Pennies that look normal, pennies people ignore. But collectors are hunting right now. Before you throw away your loose change, before you spend another penny. Watch this carefully, because one of these rare pennies could already be in your pocket. Imagine holding a tiny piece of copper that tells the entire story of an American legend, a coin so small yet so powerful that it captures 200 years of history, innovation, struggle, and triumph, a coin that was minted for only 1 year but changed the world of modern collecting forever. Welcome to the extraordinary story of the 2009 Lincoln Bicentennial 1 cent. Coins, a series created to honor the birth of Abraham Lincoln, the humble beginnings of a man who would become one of the most influential leaders in human history, and the evolution of a nation shaped by his legacy. Today we journey deep into the origins, symbolism, mysteries, production secrets, and collector value of these remarkable cents. And by the end, you will never look at a penny the same way again. This is more than metal. This is the story of America told through 4 tiny masterpieces. In 2009, the United States Mint prepared something truly historic as the nation approached the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth and the centennial of the Lincoln cent itself. For 100 years, the portrait of Lincoln had appeared on the 1-cent coin beginning in 1909. But the year 2009 offered a unique opportunity to celebrate the man, the myth, and the milestones that shaped the United States. The Mint decided to release 4 special reverse designs, each one representing a different chapter in Lincoln's life, and in doing so they created one of the most fascinating numismatic programs in modern United States history. The story begins in Kentucky, where Abraham Lincoln was born in a simple log cabin in 1809. A childhood of hardship, scarcity, and frontier living. The birth and early childhood design pays tribute to this beginning, featuring the humble cabin that symbolizes Lincoln's earliest years and stands as a reminder that greatness can emerge from the most modest origins. The image is more than a building. It represents the foundation of a life that would guide a nation through some of its darkest days. As Lincoln grew older, his family relocated to Indiana, where he spent his formative years working, learning, reading by the dim glow of a fireplace, and shaping the curiosity that would define his adulthood. The second coin, known as the Formative Years Reverse, captures the young Lincoln sitting on a logbook in hand, focused and determined, an image that resonates deeply with the spirit of self-education and perseverance that would later define him. This design tells collectors that the true power of leadership begins with learning. When Lincoln reached adulthood, he eventually settled in Illinois, where his political and legal career took root. The third coin, the Professional Life Reverse, shows Lincoln standing proudly in front of the Illinois state capitol, a tribute to his growth from a frontier boy to an influential lawyer, legislator, and rising national figure. This moment in his life reflects ambition, maturity, and dedication to public service, which ultimately guided him toward the presidency. Finally, the fourth coin, the Presidency Reverse, commemorates Lincoln's time as the 16th President of the United States. The design features the partially completed United States Capitol dome surrounded by scaffolding symbolizing a nation still under construction and undergoing transformation. The dome itself was still being rebuilt during the Civil War, and its unfinished appearance became a powerful metaphor for Lincoln's leadership through conflict, sacrifice, and the quest for unity. These 4 designs together form a complete journey from birth to leadership, a visual biography in copper, each coin minted for only a single year and each carrying deep historical meaning. Collectors immediately took notice, and the coins became a sensation, especially among new collectors, school groups, educators, and history lovers across the country. But the significance of these coins extends far beyond their artistic beauty and historical symbolism. 2009 also marked a pivotal year for United States coinage, as the composition of circulating cents shifted dramatically due to rising metal prices. Most circulating coins produced in 2009. Limited number of collector versions were minted in 95% copper, the same metal composition used in the original 1909 cents. This made the collector-proof and uncirculated versions incredibly desirable, not only because of their historical theme, but also because they restored the classic feel, weight, and ring of traditional copper cents. The 2009 series also introduced a range of varieties, errors, and mintages that further fueled collector interest, from doubled dies to misstrikes to low production runs at different mints. Each aspect added excitement and depth to the collecting experience, with millions of people searching through pocket change, hoping to uncover rare pieces beyond the coins themselves. The 2009 program ignited a renewed sense of appreciation for American history. Lincoln's life story and the artistry of the U.S. Mint educators used the coins as teaching tools. Museums incorporated them into exhibits, and the artistry of the U.S. Mint educators used the coins as teaching tools. Museums incorporated them into exhibits, and families across the country found themselves having conversations about Lincoln that may never have happened. Otherwise, the Mint followed the four reverses with the introduction of the Shield cent in 2010, a permanent redesign that symbolized Union strength and the preservation of the nation, inspired once again by Lincoln's legacy. But the 2009 coins remain unique because they are the only circulating coins ever issued by the U.S. Mint to commemorate Lincoln's life across multiple chapters, creating a narrative series in a way no other coin program had done before. The production process of the 2009 cents also carried special significance. The Mint worked with historians, artists, and scholars to ensure authenticity and accuracy in every detail, from cabin architecture to historical clothing to the incomplete Capitol dome. Each design was researched and refined to create true historical representation, and the result was a series that not only honored Lincoln, but also served as a miniature set of educational illustrations preserved permanently in metal. Today, collectors continue to cherish these coins, whether still in circulation, mint sets, or proof sets. Their value varies, but the true worth of the 2009 bicentennial Lincoln cents is deeper than price. It is their role as storytellers, as tangible links to the life of a man who shaped a nation and whose ideals continue to influence modern democracy. When we hold these coins, we hold a piece of history, a piece of a story that stretches from a tiny frontier cabin to the halls of Washington, from a self-taught boy reading by firelight to a president guiding a fractured nation toward unity and hope. And that is what makes the 2009 Lincoln Bicentennial 1-cent coins more than metal. They are the voice of the past, speaking through the currency of today, reminding us that great things can rise from humble beginnings, and that even the smallest objects can carry the largest stories. Imagine holding in your hand a coin that was born in the middle of the most devastating global conflict the world had ever seen. A coin struck not from the usual copper, but from steel coated with zinc. A coin that stands as both a necessity of war and a symbol of resilience. This is the story of the 1943 steel wheat penny, a coin so unique in American numismatic history that it continues to fascinate collectors, historians, and everyday people alike from the moment it left the presses of the United States Mint during World War II to the decades of discovery in pocket change. This coin has carried with it a tale of sacrifice, ingenuity, controversy, and survival. And today we will go deep into its history, its design, its circulation, its varieties, its errors, and its lasting impact on American coinage and culture. The wheat penny itself began in 1909 as part of President Theodore Roosevelt's campaign to beautify American coinage and honor Abraham Lincoln on the centennial. Of his birth, the new Lincoln cent featured the beloved wheat ears reverse, symbolizing prosperity and hard work. It became instantly popular and remained in production until 1958, when the memorial reverse replaced it. However, in 1943, the world and the mint faced an unprecedented challenge. Copper was needed for shell casings, for ammunition, for electrical wiring, for the vast machinery of war that kept Allied forces supplied on the battlefields of Europe, Africa, and the Pacific the mint had. No choice but to look for alternatives to continue cent production. Thus came the birth of the steel cent. In 1943, for the first and only time in American history, the 1-cent coin was made primarily of steel with a thin zinc coating to prevent rust. 3 main mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, struck these coins in the hundreds of millions, but despite their massive numbers, their appearance was so unlike the traditional penny that they immediately stood out in circulation. Bright silvery color often caused them to be mistaken for dimes, and their light weight made them feel unusual in the hand collectors. Today, see the 1943 steel wheat penny as one of the most iconic pieces of U.S. coinage, not just for its metallic composition, but also for the many varieties and errors that surround it. The most famous and valuable error is the 1943 copper penny, a mistake that occurred when leftover copper planchets from 1942 were fed into the presses. These rare survivors of a minting transition have fetched prices in the hundreds of thousands, even millions at auction, and continue to spark dreams among coin roll hunters and collectors around the world. But even the steel cents themselves have their own story of where corrosion and survival while the zinc coating protected the steel core. Initially, it often wore away, leaving the coins prone to rust and pitting, especially in humid environments. This made pristine examples harder to find and gave rise to the challenge of collecting steel pennies in high mint state grades. The differences between coins struck at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints provide additional variety for collectors, with each mint leaving its small identifying mark, or in the case of Philadelphia, none at all. Beyond the numismatic details, the steel penny reflects the sacrifices Americans made during World War II. It symbolizes how even the smallest denomination of money was tied to the larger war effort, and how everyday life adapted to extraordinary circumstances. Newspapers of the time reported on public reactions to the new pennies, some praising the patriotic move, others complaining about confusion at cash registers, banks, and stores. The mint itself issued statements reassuring the public that the change was temporary. And indeed, in 1944, copper returned, but not pure copper. This time, the coins were made from salvaged shell casings, a poetic reminder of how money and war became linked. In the most literal sense, over the decades, the 1943 steel wheat penny has grown in legend. Stories of children in the 1950s searching through piles of change in hopes of spotting the shiny steel cents, stories of families keeping jars of them as curiosities, stories of collectors chasing after the elusive copper version as the holy grail of American cents. Television shows, magazines, and coin dealers all helped spread the fame of this coin, turning it into an icon in American numismatics. In the world of grading and value, the steel wheat penny presents many dimensions. A common circulated example may only be worth a few cents, but higher-grade uncirculated specimens, especially those with brilliant original luster, can command significant premiums. Mint State 65 or better coins, particularly those certified by professional grading services, can bring collectors hundreds of dollars. And when it comes to error, coins off-center strikes, doubled, dies wrong, planchet errors, and of course, the legendary copper strikes, the prices soar into the stratosphere. As we dive deeper into the history of this coin, we uncover the metallurgical decisions, the political discussions, and the wartime directives that gave birth to the 1943 steel cent. We explore the day-to-day experiences of Americans encountering the new coins. We trace their journey through circulation, storage hoards, and the modern collector market. We look at the technological challenges of producing steel planchets at scale, the methods of plating them with zinc, and the problems encountered when the coating wore down. We also consider the long-term influence this coin had on future minting experiments and the ongoing fascination with alternative metals. The story of the 1943 steel wheat penny is not merely about a piece of currency. It is about America itself in a time of sacrifice, innovation, and unity. It is about the intersection of war and money, industry and necessity, patriotism and daily life. It is about how a small coin in your pocket can tell a story that stretches across continents and generations. And by the end of this journey, you will see that this humble penny is not just a coin. It is a chapter of history frozen in steel. A humble 1957 wheat penny sitting in old jars, drawers, or tucked away in forgotten collections could hold secrets of American history, untold stories of mid-century change, and even hidden value far beyond 1 cent. This is not just a small copper coin. It is a piece of heritage, a symbol of an era. And today we will dive deep into its story. The 1957 wheat penny is part of the long-running Lincoln Wheat Cent series, first issued in 1909 to honor the centennial of President Abraham Lincoln's birth. The wheat reverse was designed by Victor David Brenner, and it remained on the coin until 1958, making the 1957 penny one of the final issues of the iconic wheat-back design. This coin represents the late stage of an American numismatic journey that spanned half a century. The 1957 penny was minted in 2 locations, Philadelphia and Denver, with the Denver Mint, producing the majority of coins marked with a small D mint mark below the date. The Philadelphia Mint coins carried no mint mark and were struck in large numbers as well. In terms of composition, the 1957 penny was struck in a bronze alloy consisting of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, giving it the traditional reddish-brown luster that collectors value when in high-grade condition. This metal composition linked the coin to earlier decades before the changes of the mid-20th century that saw different alloys being used in United States coinage. The production numbers for the 1957 penny were enormous. More than 1 billion coins were produced across both mints, making it one of the most common wheat cents in circulation. However, within this massive mintage lie varieties, errors, and conditions that elevate some 1957 pennies to rarity and high value. The design features the familiar bust of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse. The right-facing portrait that Brenner created in 1909 remained unchanged across decades, symbolizing the enduring legacy of Lincoln as a figure of unity and freedom. His image on the 1957 penny continued to serve as a reminder of his role in guiding the nation. Through the Civil War on the reverse, we see the twin wheat stalks framing the denomination 1 cent and the words United States of America, with the Latin motto E pluribus unum above the wheat stalks. This design was meant to emphasize the agricultural foundation of the nation and the prosperity of the people, making the coin both a tribute to Lincoln and a celebration of American progress. The historical backdrop of the 1957 penny is the America of the post-war era. The United States in the late 1950s was experiencing economic growth, suburban expansion, and the early stages of the space race. 1957 itself was the year when the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite, and this marked a turning point in global politics and science. While Americans handled these small bronze coins in their daily lives, the world around them was shifting rapidly. From the automobile boom to the rise of television culture to the tensions of the Cold War, the wheat penny of 1957 became a silent witness to all these transformations. Collectors prized the 1957 penny not just for its history, but also for the chance of finding errors and rare varieties. Some examples include double-die obverse varieties, where the date or lettering shows noticeable. Doubling these are scarce but command strong premiums. Another notable category includes repunched mint marks on the Denver issues, where the D was stamped more than once, creating a visible overlapping effect. Planchet errors, off-center strikes, and other minting mistakes also occurred during production, and today these can be worth many times the face value, depending on the degree of the error and the preservation of the coin. Grading plays a vital role in determining the value of the 1957 penny coins. In worn, circulated condition, are usually worth only a few cents over face value because of their commonness. However, examples in high mint state grades, particularly those with brilliant red luster, are far more desirable. Collectors pay significant premiums for coins graded MS65 or higher, especially when they display full red color without the browning that copper coins usually develop over decades. Proof-like strikes or coins with unusually sharp details can also attract interest among specialists. Although official proof cents were not struck for circulation in 1957, Philadelphia did produce proof sets for collectors, and the 1957 proof wheat penny from those sets is a highly sought-after collectible in pristine condition. The cultural significance of the wheat penny design cannot be overlooked. For nearly 50 years, Americans carried these coins in pockets, spent them in shops, and saved them in jars. The wheat penny became a symbol of familiarity and tradition. By 1957, many people knew that a change was coming. The Lincoln Memorial Reverse was introduced in 1959 to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, meaning that the 1957 issue was one of the last moments in which the wheat design served as the face of everyday commerce. This gives the coin a sense of closure to an era, a bridge between early 20th century America and the modern age. Beyond its numismatic details, the 1957 penny also carries personal histories. Countless individuals recall memories of receiving wheat pennies as children, discovering them in change, or being introduced to coin collecting through these small copper pieces. Schools, libraries, and community clubs often used wheat pennies to teach about history, economics, and saving money. They were easy to collect, inexpensive, and accessible to all, which is why the 1957 penny and others like it sparked generations of coin collectors who would later pursue the hobby more seriously. As we expand on the story of the 1957 wheat penny, it is essential to consider its role in the broader history of United States coinage. The transition from wheat to the memorial reverse marked a shift not only in design, but in national identity. The memorial reverse symbolized a new focus on national monuments and collective memory, while the wheat design emphasized agriculture and growth. Thus, the 1957 penny is not just a piece of currency, but a turning point in the iconography of American money. Over the course of this narrative, we can explore the social and economic atmosphere of the 1950s, how inflation and coinage policy influenced minting, how collectors began to organize societies and publish guides, and how the wheat penny became enshrined as one of the most collected coins in America. The 1957 penny provides an ideal lens through which to view all of these themes. From its massive mintages to its hidden varieties, from its proof issues to its place in history, the 1957 wheat penny stands as more than just copper. It is a time capsule of post-war America and a reminder that even the smallest coin can hold great value, not just in dollars but in memory, heritage, and meaning. Step into the world of numismatic treasure, where every coin tells a hidden story. Today we unlock the secrets of the rare American coins, focusing on the legendary wheat penny of 1939, a small piece of copper that carries the weight of history, rarity, and collector passion. The wheat penny of 1939 stands as one of the most remarkable pieces of American coinage history, a coin that was struck during a turbulent time when the United States was slowly recovering from the Great Depression, and the world was on the brink of entering the most devastating conflict in human history, the Second World War. To understand the wheat penny of 1939, we must go back in time to the origins of the Lincoln cent. which was first introduced in 1909 as a way to honor the centennial of President Abraham Lincoln's birth. It was the first widely circulated American coin to feature a real historical figure, and it replaced the Indian head cent that had been in circulation since 1859. The design of the Lincoln cent was created by Victor David Brenner, an immigrant from Lithuania who became one of the most celebrated engravers of his time. He crafted a portrait of Abraham Lincoln, based on a photograph taken by Matthew Brady, and the reverse side of the coin carried two wheat stalks symbolizing prosperity and agricultural strength, which gave the coin its nickname, the Wheat Penny, from 1909 until 1958. The wheat reverse was used, making this series one of the most beloved by collectors across the world. The 1939 wheat penny falls within this range, and although on the surface it may appear to be just another copper cent, its story is rich with history, minting details, rarity varieties, and the economic backdrop of its time. The year 1939 was significant for both the United States and the world in America. The economy was still healing from the long shadow of the Great Depression. The New Deal programs launched earlier in the decade had brought some recovery, but unemployment remained high and industries were still struggling to return to pre-1929 levels internationally. September of 1939 marked the beginning of World War II when Germany invaded Poland, and although the United States did not enter the war until 1941, the global tension was already shaping policies. Trade and public sentiment coins struck in this year, therefore carry with them not only the image of Lincoln, but also the weight of a nation in transition. Industries were still struggling to return to pre-1929 levels internationally. September of 1939 marked the beginning of World War II when Germany invaded Poland, and although the United States did not enter the war until 1941, the global tension was already shaping policies. Trade and public sentiment coins struck in this year, therefore carry with them not only the image of Lincoln, but also the weight of a nation in transition. The 1939 wheat penny was struck at three United States mints: the Philadelphia Mint, which produced coins without a mint mark, the Denver Mint with the D mint mark, and the San Francisco Mint with the S mint mark. Each of these carries its own level of rarity and collector interest. The Philadelphia Mint produced the highest mintage of 316 million pieces, which makes the 1939 no mint mark penny relatively common. The Denver Mint produced around 15 million coins, making it scarcer, while the San Francisco Mint struck just under 52 million pieces, placing it in between the two in terms of availability. However, collectors value these coins not just for their mintage numbers, but also for the condition in which they survive. Uncirculated examples of the 1939 wheat penny, particularly those with sharp strikes and original red luster, are considered treasures by numismatists. Grading agencies like PCGS and NGC assign numerical grades to coins with mint state 65 and higher being the most sought after, while circulated coins are easy to find. Pristine, uncirculated survivors are much more difficult. This is because pennies were heavily used in everyday transactions, and most were quickly worn down through circulation, making high-grade survivors rare. There are also notable varieties and errors associated with the 1939 wheat penny. One of the most recognized is the doubled die obverse, where details like the date or lettering appear doubled under magnification. Though not as famous as the 1955 doubled die, the 1939 varieties still attract strong collector interest. Repunched mint marks, where the D or S mint mark appears to have been stamped more than once, are also popular among collectors and can dramatically increase the value of the coin in auctions and private sales. Error coins such as off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or die cracks from this year are also cherished for their uniqueness. Each error coin represents a glimpse into the minting process and the imperfections that escape the quality control of the time. The composition of the 1939 wheat penny was 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, weighing 3.11 grams and measuring 19 millimeters in Diameter, this standard composition had been used for decades and would remain until 1943, when wartime shortages forced the mint to strike pennies in zinc-coated steel. Instead, copper was needed for the production of ammunition and military equipment during the war years, which makes the pre-1943 copper cents, including the 1939 penny important markers of the pre-war era. Holding in your hand a 1939 penny is holding a Your hand a 1939 penny is holding a fragment of America just before it stepped fully into World War II. Collectors often categorize the 1939 wheat penny into several groups based on strike quality and preservation coins, with original red surfaces are considered the highest tier, followed by red-brown, and then brown coins which show full toning from circulation. Red examples in high mint state grades can fetch hundreds of dollars, while even circulated versions hold steady value because of their age, historical importance, and popularity among collectors. When we look at the broader history of the wheat penny, we see that the 1939 issue sits in the middle of the series. It was not the first, not the last, and not struck in a key year like 1909 or 1955, but it still tells its own story, the story of a nation standing between depression and war, a people who still believed in progress and prosperity, symbolized by the wheat stalks, and a mint that continued to deliver billions of coins to fuel commerce during uncertain times. Beyond the facts and figures, the 1939 wheat penny has a cultural significance. Many collectors can remember finding these coins in circulation decades later, well into the 1950s and 1960s, when wheat pennies were still commonly encountered in pocket change. Today, finding one in circulation is rare but possible, and the thrill of spotting those two wheat ears on the reverse is what has sparked a lifelong collecting passion for many numismatists. Children in the 20th century often started coin collecting with wheat pennies found in change, and the 1939 issue remains a favorite for building sets, whether in circulated grades or as part of high-quality registry collections. The legacy of the wheat penny, and the 1939 issue in particular, is a legacy of resilience, of memory, and of the enduring American spirit. As small as it is, the coin embodies a moment in history when the United States was still climbing out of hardship while bracing for challenges that lay ahead for collectors, investors, and historians. The 1939 wheat penny is more than a coin. It is a doorway to the past, a conversation with history struck in copper and passed from hand to hand across generations, where ordinary pocket change turns into extraordinary stories. And today, we are diving deep into the Lincoln penny, 1971, a coin that millions of people have held without ever realizing the powerful history hidden inside this small copper piece. Imagine a time when America was changing fast. The Vietnam War was still shaping the nation, inflation was rising, cities were growing, technology was accelerating, and right in the middle of all this, transformation. The 1971 Lincoln penny was quietly being struck and released into circulation. This was not just a coin, it was a witness to history, a silent traveler through wallets, cash registers, and generations of American life. The Lincoln penny design, created by Victor David Brenner, still honored Abraham Lincoln, the first real person ever placed on a circulating United States coin, symbolizing unity, sacrifice, and resilience. And by 1971, this design had already become one of the most recognizable images in the world. The obverse carried Lincoln's strong, thoughtful profile facing right, representing leadership through hardship, while the reverse still displayed the Lincoln Memorial, a powerful reminder of national memory and respect. During a decade filled with social tension and cultural change, the 1971 penny was produced in massive numbers at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, making it one of the most widely circulated coins of its era. Yet rarity does not always come from low mintage. It often comes from condition errors and history, and that is where this coin begins to reveal its deeper value. The composition was still primarily copper, 95% copper and 5% zinc. A metal blend that would soon disappear as rising copper prices forced the United States Mint to rethink coin production, meaning the 1971 penny belongs to the final era of traditional copper cents, giving it special status among collectors who value weight tone and metal authenticity beyond numbers. Some 1971 pennies were struck with weak details, doubled dies off center strikes, and other mint errors that today can be worth many times their face value, and finding one of these is like uncovering buried treasure in plain sight. This coin also reflects the economy of its time. Pennies were still powerful in purchasing power, grocery prices, gas prices, and daily essentials were low enough that a single cent mattered, which makes this coin a symbol of everyday American life in the early 70s. Children saved them in jars. Shopkeepers counted them by hand, and families passed them down without knowing they were passing history itself as the years went on. Many of these pennies were lost, melted, damaged, or forgotten, making high-grade examples increasingly desirable. Today, collectors search for brilliant, uncirculated pieces with full mint luster and sharp memorial lines because they represent a moment frozen in time, untouched by decades of circulation. The 1971 Lincoln penny connects the legacy of Abraham Lincoln, the artistry of early 20th century coin design, and the economic realities of a changing America all into one small, powerful object. And as you hold this coin, you are not just holding copper, you are holding the sound of cash registers from the 70s, the stories of working families, the shift of a nation, and the quiet strength of a design that has endured for more than a century. So stay with us on coins, because this is only the beginning of the story. And by the end of this journey, you will never look at a penny the same way again. The story of the 1971 Lincoln penny. We begin to understand how this small coin fits into a much larger picture of American history and culture. By the early 1970s, the United States Mint was under pressure. Rising metal costs, increased production demands, and a rapidly expanding population meant billions of coins had to be produced efficiently. Yet with consistency, the Philadelphia Mint struck the 1971 penny without a mint mark, while the Denver Mint added the small d below the A date, and both facilities worked non-stop to meet national demand. These coins moved fast through circulation, passing from factory workers to shop counters, from school cafeterias to gas stations, and every single one carried the same image of Abraham Lincoln, a president whose legacy of unity and perseverance mirrored the challenges America was facing. At that time, the Vietnam War protests, civil rights movements, and economic uncertainty made the early 70s a period of questioning and change. And the Lincoln penny served as a quiet constant, something familiar and trusted during uncertain times. Collectors today study the details of the 1971 penny closely: the sharpness of Lincoln's hair, the clarity of the lettering, the strength of the Lincoln Memorial columns on the reverse, because these details tell the story of how the coin was struck. And preserved coins with full red color untouched by circulation are especially prized because copper naturally darkens over time, making bright examples increasingly rare. Another fascinating chapter of the 1971 penny is the search for varieties. Some pennies show doubled lettering, particularly on the date or the word Liberty, caused by misaligned dies. During the minting process, these varieties were not intentional, yet they became some of the most exciting discoveries in modern coin. Collecting error coins remind us that even in highly controlled systems, human and mechanical imperfections can create something unique and valuable. Off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and weak strikes all exist within the 1971 penny series, turning what was once spare change into a collectible worth careful examination. The weight and feel of the coin also matter. The solid copper composition gives it a heavier feel compared to later pennies made primarily of zinc, which adds to the emotional connection collectors feel toward this era. These pennies sound different when dropped, they age differently. They tell time through color and texture as decades passed. Many 1971 pennies were pulled from circulation by collectors who understood that the copper era was coming to an end. Just 1 year later, the mint would switch to a copper-plated zinc composition, marking a major shift in American coinage history. This makes the 1971 penny one of the final symbols of traditional cent production, a bridge between classic and modern coinage. When you think about how many hands this coin has passed through, how many purchases it helped complete, and how many moments it silently witnessed, it becomes more than money. It becomes a storyteller. Every scratch, every tone change, every worn edge is evidence of a journey through American life, and that is why collectors and historians continue to study the 1971 Lincoln penny not just for its potential value, but for its ability to connect us to a specific moment in time, a moment when a nation was evolving and a simple penny carried the weight of history forward. And as we move further into this series, we will uncover how grading works, what separates a common example from a rare gem, and why even today searching through old coin jars could still reveal a hidden piece of this incredible story, where ordinary change turns into extraordinary history. And today we unlock the full hidden story of the Lincoln penny 1965, a year that looks quiet at first glance, but actually stands at the center of one of the most dramatic turning points in American coinage, a moment when money itself was changing forever, when silver vanished from daily life, when fear, hoarding, and confusion swept across the nation, and when a simple 1-cent coin carried the weight of economic pressure, government power, and public trust. As you listen, imagine holding a 1965 Lincoln penny in your hand, feeling its copper surface worn by decades of pockets, registers, and chance wondering how a coin so small could survive one of the greatest monetary shakeups in United States history. Because 1965 was not just another year. It was the year the Coinage Act transformed American money forever. Silver was removed from circulating coins, prices were rising, people were pulling coins from circulation, and the government rushed to keep commerce alive. And in the middle of that storm, the Lincoln cent continued its silent duty, struck in massive numbers at the Philadelphia Mint, with no mint mark, a tradition that itself tells a deeper story about authority and standardization. The obverse still carried Victor David Brenner's timeless portrait of Abraham Lincoln, first introduced in 1909, honoring the 100th anniversary of his birth, a design that by 1965 had become a symbol of stability and continuity for the American people, while the reverse still displayed the familiar wheat ears that had been feeding collectors' stories since 1909. But behind that familiar look, the world had changed. The economy was under pressure. Copper prices were rising. The government was already planning future changes that would lead to the end of wheat cents. Just a few years later, and every 1965 penny struck was part of a race to keep small change flowing through a nervous economy. Millions upon millions were minted, not because the penny was suddenly more valuable, but because it was suddenly more necessary. As higher denomination coins disappeared into drawers and safes, the humble cent became essential again. Store owners needed it, cashiers depended on it, and ordinary Americans trusted it. The 1965 Lincoln penny became a workhorse coin, moving endlessly from hand to hand across cities, towns, factories, and farms, while newspapers talked about silver shortages and people argued about whether money was losing its meaning. Yet this penny endured, made of bronze, 95% copper, and 5% tin and zinc. It represented the end of an era because within a few short years, even this metal composition would change forever, making the 1965 issue one of the last true traditional copper cents before cost-cutting would reshape the coin. Again, collectors today look back at this year not for rarity alone, but for context, because history gives value beyond numbers. Some 1965 pennies were struck with stronger strikes, sharper details, deeper color, and those coins tell us about minting quality during a time of pressure. Others show errors, off-center strikes, weak impressions, and planche flaws, revealing the speed and urgency of production. Each variation is a frozen moment, from a mint working overtime to supply a nation in transition. And when you understand that every scratch, every tone, every worn edge becomes part of a larger story. The Lincoln Penny 1965 is not about instant riches. It is about survival, continuity, and trust. It is about a government responding to crisis, an economy adapting to change, and a people still believing in the smallest unit of their money. As you go deeper into this story, you will see how this single year connects to politics, inflation, metal markets, mint technology, and the psychology of everyday Americans. And by the end, you will never look at a 1965 penny the same way again, because this is more than a coin. This is history you can hold, and this is only the beginning. 1965. Lincoln Penny moves deeper into the daily life of America during a time when the country was balancing confidence and uncertainty. Factories were running, stores were busy, the Vietnam War was escalating, and social change was everywhere. Yet in every transaction, the penny remained constant, slipping across counters, dropped into jars, tucked into wallets, a quiet witness to history unfolding in real time. The Philadelphia Mint operated relentlessly, striking cents day and night, responding to unprecedented demand, because people were saving silver coins and spending copper ones, creating shortages that forced banks to ration change and post signs limiting coin withdrawals. And this pressure explains why the 1965 Lincoln penny exists in such massive numbers, not as a symbol of excess, but as a solution to fear the government needed Americans to keep spending, to keep trusting their money, and the penny played a crucial role in that. Mission collectors today often overlook high mintage years, but seasoned numismatists understand that high mintage during crisis years carries its own weight because it reflects urgency policy and public behavior. The design itself still featured Abraham Lincoln, calm, steady, and dignified, a deliberate choice because Lincoln represented unity, endurance, and national strength, values the country needed to remember during the mid-1960s. And on the reverse, the wheat ears symbolized growth and nourishment, a design nearing its end, because by 1969, the Lincoln Memorial reverse would replace it, marking another chapter in American symbolism, making the 1965 wheat cent part of the final generation of a design that had fed collectors' stories for 60 years. And within those millions of coins, subtle differences emerge, color ranging from deep red to mellow brown surfaces, revealing storage conditions, circulation patterns, and environmental exposure. Some coins remained untouched, preserved in mint sets, while others lived hard lives in cash registers, jukeboxes, parking meters, and school cafeterias, and every path adds character and meaning. Errors from this year, including doubled dies, repunched details, and striking anomalies, provide glimpses into mint operations under stress, reminding us that perfection was secondary to production. Speed. And while values today vary widely from circulated examples worth face value to pristine red gems commanding strong premiums, the true value lies in understanding why these coins exist and what they represent. They are physical proof of a nation adapting to economic reality, balancing metal costs, production needs, and public confidence. And as you explore rolls, collections, and inherited jars, searching for that perfect example, you are not just hunting for value, you are retracing the footsteps of American commerce itself. The 1965 Lincoln penny bridges past and future, connecting the classic bronze cent to the changes that would soon reshape coinage forever. And as this journey continues, we will dive even deeper into minting techniques, metal sourcing, historical reactions, collector myths, and how this single year fits into the larger Lincoln cent timeline, turning a simple penny into a 2-hour story of power, policy, and perseverance that continues to echo every time copper meets palm. Imagine holding a simple copper-colored coin in your hand, a coin so small and so common that millions of people passed it every single day without a second thought, yet hidden inside that quiet one. Cent piece is a powerful story of America in crisis, change, survival, and identity. This is the Lincoln penny of 1967, a coin born during one of the most dramatic decades in United States history, a time of war protests, civil rights movements, economic pressure, and massive cultural shifts, and today, we are going to uncover why this ordinary-looking penny is far more important than most people will ever realize. This is not just a coin. This is a witness to history. This is a survivor of a national coin shortage. This is a product of political decisions and public panic. And this is a symbol of how the United States adapted when its money itself was under threat. The 1967 Lincoln penny was minted at a moment when Americans were hoarding coins, melting them down, and fearing the disappearance of everyday change. Copper prices were rising fast, silver coins were vanishing from circulation, and the government was forced to take emergency action to protect the nation's currency. During this time, the U.S. Mint made a historic decision to remove mint marks entirely from all coins from 1965 through 1967, including the Lincoln penny. The goal was simple: stop collectors from pulling coins out of circulation, but that decision created a unique class of coins that today tells a deeper story of fear control and economic pressure. Every 1967. Lincoln penny was struck without a mint mark, yet they were produced in massive numbers at Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, making this year one of the most misunderstood in penny history. The design still featured the iconic Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, a design created by Victor David Brenner in 1909, honoring the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, and on the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo, standing as a symbol of unity, strength, and remembrance during a time when the nation itself felt deeply divided. The metal composition of the 1967 penny was 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin, giving it intrinsic value that many people do not realize today, and during the late 1960s, and beyond, this copper content became one of the reasons pennies were saved, hoarded, and sometimes illegally melted down as copper prices climbed. The U.S. government even passed laws to prevent melting cents because the metal value threatened to exceed the face value, and this single fact alone turns the 1967 Lincoln penny into a powerful example of how money and material value can collide. The mintage numbers were enormous, with over 3 billion pennies produced that year, which is why many people assume the coin has no value. But value in coin collecting is not only about rarity, it is about condition errors, history, and story. And the 1967 penny delivers on all of these collectors. Today, search for high-grade examples with full red luster, untouched surfaces, and strong strikes. Because finding a perfectly preserved penny from circulation during such a chaotic time is far harder than it sounds. Even more exciting are error coins from 1967, including doubled dies off center strikes, clipped planchets, and die cracks. Each error represents a moment inside the mint where machinery pressure and speed created something unique, something unrepeatable, turning a 1-cent coin into a prized collectible. And when you hold a 1967 penny, you are holding a coin that circulated during the Vietnam War, during the rise of television as a dominant force during moon race tension, during protests that reshaped American society. This penny bought candy newspapers, gas stations, snacks, and everyday dreams. It passed through the hands. Everyday dreams. It passed through the hands of factory workers, soldiers, students, and parents. It lived in pockets, jars, cash registers, and school lunch lines. And while it may look silent today, it carries the energy of millions of lives and moments, and this is why the 1967 Lincoln penny deserves respect, attention, and deep study, because it proves that even the smallest denomination can carry the weight of an entire era. And as we continue deeper into this story, we will uncover rare varieties, hidden errors, current market values, grading secrets, and why some 1967 pennies sell for far more than 1 cent, and why this coin remains one of the most important educational pieces for both new collectors and seasoned numismatists alike. This is the story of survival, adaptation, and American resilience told through copper and history. And this is only the beginning. Move further into the story of the 1967 Lincoln penny. We must understand what was truly happening behind the doors of the United States Mint, because this coin was not created in calm conditions. It was born under pressure speed and national urgency. Machines were running almost non-stop, striking millions of coins. Day and night workers were focused on quantity over perfection, and that environment explains why so many interesting errors and varieties exist. From this year, the Mint was racing to keep coins flowing into the economy because Americans were pulling change out of circulation at an alarming rate. People believed coins would soon be worth more as metal than money, and that belief alone nearly broke the system. The 1967 penny therefore represents a government fighting to keep everyday commerce alive. And when something is produced that fast, small mistakes happen, letters shift, dies crack. Metal flows unevenly, and collectors decades later benefit from those moments frozen in copper. One of the most fascinating aspects of the 1967 penny is its strike quality. Many coins appear weak in certain areas, especially Lincoln's hair and the steps of the memorial. And this is not accidental. It reflects worn dies used longer than usual to save time and cost. Yet when a sharply struck 1967 penny appears with full detail, it immediately stands out and commands attention among collectors. Grading becomes critical here, because the difference between an average circulated example and a high-grade mint state red coin can mean the difference between pocket change and a premium collectible professional grading services. Carefully examine color surface marks, luster, and strike, and only a small percentage survive in top condition, especially untouched red examples, because copper darkens easily. Over time, another layer of value comes from transitional errors and experimental strikes. Rumors have long circulated among collectors about unusual planchets and odd weights from the late 1960s as the Mint tested processes, and while confirmed examples are rare, the hunt itself keeps collectors engaged, always searching, always questioning every penny under magnification. The 1967 penny also plays a key role in teaching new collectors how to study coins because it is affordable, accessible. Everyone, today, we are diving deep into the fascinating world of the 1989 Lincoln penny, a coin that might look ordinary at first glance, but holds a rich history and surprising details that every coin collector or history enthusiast will find absolutely captivating. In this video, we are going to explore everything from the origins of the Lincoln cent, the meticulous design choices, the minting process, and the economic and cultural context that made this coin a part of American history. We will also uncover rare varieties, errors, and valuable details that can make a 1989 penny worth far more than its face value. We will look at the differences between pennies minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, and learn how to identify subtle mint marks and condition grades that determine a coin's true collectible value. We will discuss the composition changes that have occurred over time and why the 1989 Lincoln penny still holds a place in collectors' hearts. We will explore Abraham Lincoln's legacy and why his profile has graced the 1-cent coin since 1909. And how this connects to American identity and pride. And we will examine the artistry of Victor David Brenner, the sculptor who designed the iconic Lincoln cent, and how every detail from the lettering to Lincoln's facial expression carries meaning and historical significance. We will look at production numbers and distribution data from the Philadelphia and Denver mints in 1989, and what those numbers tell us about rarity survival rates and investment potential. We will discuss tips for collectors on grading coins, identifying uncirculated specimens, spotting errors such as double dies, repunched mint marks, and off-center strikes that could make a standard penny suddenly highly sought after, and we will also cover storage preservation techniques to maintain coin quality over decades and decades. We will tell stories of notable 1989 pennies found in circulation collections and auctions, highlighting just how thrilling coin collecting can be as we go through this journey. we will take a closer look at the historical backdrop of 1989 in America, including the economy, politics, culture, and everyday life, and how the Lincoln penny quietly witnessed these moments while circulating in pockets, purses, and cash registers across the country. This is more than just a coin. This is a piece of history, innovation, and craftsmanship, and by the end of this video, you will understand why even a humble 1989 Lincoln penny deserves attention, appreciation, and maybe even a spot in your collection. So stay tuned as we uncover the complete professional story of the 1989 Lincoln penny. Every detail, every nuance, every collectible insight, and make sure to watch till the end, because some of the rarest and most fascinating facts might just surprise you and change the way you look at pennies forever. Now let's start by exploring the origins of the Lincoln cent. The idea to honor Abraham Lincoln on the penny came in 1909, which was the centennial of his birth. It was a revolutionary decision at the time because it was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person. Instead of allegorical figures, Victor David Brenner was chosen to design the coin, and his design has influenced every Lincoln penny. Since then, Lincoln's portrait is detailed and realistic, capturing his thoughtful expression, his beard, which was unusual for coinage at the time, and the sharp lines of his coat and tie reflect Brenner's dedication to realism and artistry. On the reverse side, the Lincoln Memorial design introduced later gives a sense of gravitas and national pride, although the 1989 penny still carries the memorial reverse, which was introduced in 1959. The 1989 Lincoln penny was struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints with the distinctive P&D mint marks. This is the distinctive P&D mint marks. This is important because collectors always pay attention to mint marks when assessing rarity and value. The coin is made primarily of copper, with a small percentage of zinc providing durability, and a familiar reddish color that over time develops a natural patina. The diameter is 19 millimeters, and the weight is just over 2.5 grams, giving it a comfortable feel in hand. Understanding these physical characteristics is key for collectors because the slightest difference in weight or composition can indicate a unique variety or minting anomaly. Now let's discuss circulation. The 1989 penny was widely used in everyday transactions from vending machines to cash registers across the United States. Millions were minted. But despite the large numbers, some coins have survived in nearly perfect condition due to careful storage or simply not being circulated extensively. These uncirculated coins are highly prized in the numismatic community, especially those graded MS-65 and above by professional grading services. The surface luster, sharp strike, and absence of blemishes can dramatically increase a coin's value and appeal. Collectors should also pay close attention to varieties and errors. The 1989 Lincoln penny has some known varieties such as doubled, die-obverse coins where certain features like Lincoln's cheek or the date appear doubled due to a misalignment during the minting process. These errors are rare and can significantly increase the coin's value. There are also repunched mint marks where the P or D is struck more than once, creating a slight shadow effect, which is another sought-after variety. Experienced collectors and numismatists use magnification tools to identify these subtle features accurately, and even small differences in die rotation or die cracks can make a penny unique and collectible. Next, we explore the grading system. The Sheldon scale ranges from 1 to 70, and professional grading services like PCGS and NGC assess coins based on strike quality, luster, surface preservation, and eye appeal. A 1989 Lincoln penny in MS-67 condition could be worth several times more than a typical circulated coin. Understanding how to grade coins properly is essential for anyone serious about coin collecting, and knowing what to look for will prevent costly mistakes when buying or selling coins. Collectors should also be aware of cleaning, which can damage the coin's surface and drastically reduce its value. Natural toning is preferred, and preserving the coin in a protective holder is always recommended. We will also examine historical context. 1989 was a year of change in the United States and around the world politically, economically, and culturally. The penny quietly circulated through these events, witnessing everyday American life transactions and memories being exchanged through cash. The Lincoln penny connects us to that history in a tangible way. And it is fascinating to consider that holding a 1989 penny is holding a piece of the past, a symbol of continuity and heritage. Later in the video, we will cover stories of remarkable 1989 pennies found in circulation collections, such as coins that appear flawless. Despite decades of use, coins discovered in rolls from banks with pristine surfaces, and rare error coins sold at auction for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. These stories demonstrate the thrill of coin collecting and why attention to detail and patience are so important. Finally, we will provide practical advice for collectors from beginners to advanced how to source 1989 Lincoln pennies from circulation coin rolls, online auctions, and local coin shops, how to identify high-grade coins without expensive equipment, how to store and protect your coins for decades, and how to track market trends to make informed buying and selling decisions. By the end of this video, you will have a comprehensive understanding of the 1989 Lincoln penny, its history, design, minting process, varieties, errors, grading, and collecting strategies. You will see why this humble 1-cent coin deserves attention, respect, and appreciation, and you might even be inspired to start your own collection of Lincoln pennies and other fascinating coins from American history. Stay with us as we continue this deep dive into every possible detail about the 1989 Lincoln penny, from production to preservation and everything in between, where every small piece of copper carries a giant American story. And today we are opening the door to a modern coin that millions have held but very few have truly understood, the Lincoln penny. 2015, a coin from your pocket that quietly connects Civil War history, modern America, presidential legacy, and the future of money itself. And before you scroll away, remember this one simple truth. Some of the most powerful stories in numismatics are not hiding in museums. They are hiding in plain sight. And this penny is one of them, because the 2015 Lincoln penny is not just a coin. It is a living chapter in the longest-running coin design in United States history. A design born in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln, the man who preserved the nation, and over a century later still telling his story to a new generation. And in 2015, America was standing at a crossroads. Technology was reshaping daily life. Cash was being questioned, and yet this humble penny continued to be minted, carrying forward tradition, memory, and meaning. And as we dive deeper, you will discover why the Lincoln penny still exists when many countries have abandoned their lowest denomination, why it is no longer made of solid copper, yet still looks the same, why billions were struck yet. Specific examples are already being pulled aside by collectors, and why future historians may look back at the 2015 penny as part of the final era of circulating cents as we know them. And this story begins with Abraham Lincoln himself, a man born in a log cabin who rose to define freedom, unity, and sacrifice, and his image on the penny was revolutionary at the time, the first real person ever placed on a circulating American coin. And by 2015, his portrait had evolved subtly over decades, refined by engravers, but always recognizable, always watching, always reminding Americans of who they are and what they stand for. And in 2015, the obverse still featured the familiar Lincoln bust designed by Victor David Brenner, a design so iconic it has survived wars, recessions, cultural revolutions, and technological explosions, while the reverse tells a different story. Because by this time, the Lincoln penny had already transitioned from the wheat ears to the Lincoln Memorial, and then to the shield reverse introduced to symbolize national unity and strength. And that shield on the 2015 penny is not decorative. It represents the union of states held together by one strong federal government, an idea Lincoln fought and died for. And when you hold this coin, you are holding symbolism pressed into metal. Symbolism most people never stop to consider. And then there is the metal itself, because the 2015 penny is not copper in the way your grandparents remember it. It is a modern cent made primarily of zinc with a thin copper, coding a change that reflects rising metal costs, economic pressure, and the reality of producing billions of coins for everyday use. And that quiet change tells a story of inflation, industrial policy, and the struggle to balance tradition with practicality. And as the mint struck these coins in Philadelphia and Denver, millions poured into circulation each day, flowing through hands, gas stations, grocery stores, and banks unnoticed. Yet each one carries mint marks, production quality variations, and microscopic details that collectors study with passion and patience. And within these ordinary cents exist extraordinary possibilities, such as errors doubled, dies off center strikes, and rare high-grade examples that survived circulation untouched. And as we move further into this journey, we will explore how grading works, why a single point on the Sheldon scale can mean the difference between a coin worth face value and one worth serious money, and why condition is king in modern coin collecting. And we will uncover how rolls of 2015 pennies are already being saved by smart collectors who understand that rarity is not always about age, but about survival and demand. And we will look at the debate surrounding the penny itself, whether it should be abolished, redesigned, or preserved, and how the 2015 issue fits perfectly into that conversation as a symbol of resistance against change and proof that even the smallest coin can spark the biggest arguments. And over the course of this deep dive, we will connect history, economics, art, politics, and collecting into one continuous story, all beginning with a single cent from 2015. And by the end of this video, you will never look at a penny the same way again. Because this is not just about a coin. This is about America, its past, its present, and its uncertain future. So stay with me, because what starts as pocket change is about to become one of the most fascinating stories in modern numismatics, right here on Coins. Lincoln Penny 2015. We move beyond the surface and into the hidden layers that most people never notice, because every coin is a document of its time, and this penny reflects an America balancing tradition and transformation. In 2015, the nation was deeply digital. Smartphones ruled daily life. Online payments were rising. And yet the United States Mint continued striking billions of cents, knowing full well that many questioned their purpose. And that tension is frozen into this coin, making it a perfect historical artifact of a changing era. And when you study the production numbers, you begin to understand the scale of this operation, because hundreds of millions were struck at the Philadelphia Mint with no mint mark, and hundreds of millions more at the Denver Mint marked with a simple D, a tiny letter that can change the story of a coin. And collectors know that mint marks matter because they tell us where a coin was born, what dies were used, and how quality varied from facility to facility. And when we examine 2015 cents closely, we see sharp strikes, clean lines, and modern precision. But we also see flaws, die deterioration, weak details, and subtle variations that separate common examples from collectible ones. And this is where the hunt truly begins, because modern coin collecting is not about age alone. It is about finding perfection in a world of mass production. And a 2015 penny graded at the highest mint state levels becomes something entirely different from the one rattling in your pocket. And as we explore grading, we must talk about surfaces, luster strike, and eye appeal concepts that sound simple, but take years to master, because a single scratch, a dull finish, or a soft strike can erase premium value, while blazing red color and untouched surfaces can elevate a cent into a showpiece. And this is why some collectors search bankrolls tirelessly, opening thousands of pennies, chasing that one flawless example that somehow escaped circulation and survived untouched. And then there are the errors, the accidents that turn ordinary coins into legends, off-center strikes that reveal blank metal broad strikes that spread the design, outward doubled dies where letters seem to vibrate with motion, and wrong plancher errors, where a penny is struck on the wrong metal. each one a reminder that even in the age of machines, perfection is never guaranteed. And the 2015 Lincoln penny is no exception, because documented errors from this year are already prized by specialists and will only grow more desirable as time passes. Where ordinary pocket change turns into extraordinary American history. And today, you are about to discover why the Lincoln penny dated 1964 is one of the most misunderstood, most talked about, and most fascinating coins ever struck by the United States Mint. And this is not just a story about a penny. It is a story about power, politics, money pressure, metal shortages, secret mint experiments, collector myths, and a single date that still causes confusion, excitement, and debate. Decades later, imagine holding a small copper-colored coin in your hand, a coin that looks simple at first glance, yet carries the weight of a nation in transition, a nation dealing with rising silver prices, public hoarding, government panic, and one of the biggest changes in American coinage history, the year 1964, stands like a locked door between two eras, the old world of precious metal coins and the new world of modern-clad coinage, and right at the center of this storm sits the Lincoln penny bearing the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. A design first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, making it the first regular-issue U.S. coin to feature a real historical person instead of a symbolic figure. And by 1964, that same design had already witnessed World War's economic booms, depressions, and the rise of the United States as a global superpower. But 1964 was different because America was running out of silver. The price of silver was climbing fast, and the public knew it. People began pulling silver coins out of circulation, saving them, hoarding them, melting them down, and this created a massive coin shortage across the country. Vending machines ran dry, cash registers were empty, and everyday commerce began to slow. The U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure to keep coins flowing, and while pennies were not made of silver, they were caught in the chaos because every denomination had to be produced in record numbers to keep the system alive. And that is why the 1964 Lincoln penny was struck in staggering quantities at both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint, with no mint mark for Philadelphia, and a small D for Denver, and together they produced billions of pennies in a single year, making 1964 one of the highest mintage years in Lincoln cent history. And yet, despite these massive numbers, this coin became surrounded by rumors, legends, and misinformation that still confuse collectors today. One of the biggest myths is the existence of a regular issue. 1964 Lincoln penny made of special metal or struck as a pattern for a future change. But the truth is more subtle and more interesting. The U.S. Mint was already experimenting behind closed doors with alternative metals because copper prices were rising just like silver, and officials feared that even the humble penny would soon cost more to make than its face value, and so experimental cents were quietly tested in different compositions, including aluminum and other alloys. But none were officially released for circulation in 1964, and this secrecy fueled decades of speculation, causing people to believe that rare 1964 pennies were hiding in old jars and rolls worth fortunes. And while the standard 1964 Lincoln penny is composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, the same bronze alloy used since 1944, its historical value comes not from rarity but from timing, because it represents the final full year before the United States abandoned silver coinage completely, and before the nation seriously began questioning the future of even its smallest denomination. The design itself tells a deeper story on the obverse. Lincoln's calm, steady profile faces right with the words, "In God we trust," above his head, "Liberty" behind him, and the date. 1964 below a simple layout that by this time had become one of the most recognized images in American life. And on the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial stands tall, introduced in 1959, replacing the wheat ears and marking 150 years since Lincoln's birth, and inside the memorial. If you look closely, you can still see a tiny seated statue of Lincoln, making this one of the few U.S. coins to feature the same person twice on one design. And in 1964, this reverse symbolized remembrance, unity, and stability at a time when the nation was anything but stable. Because America was in the middle of the Cold War, the civil rights movement was reshaping society, and President Lyndon B. Johnson had just signed the Civil Rights Act into law while also pushing massive government spending programs, and all of this affected the economy, inflation pressure, and metal demand, which fed directly into the crisis that made 1964 such a critical year for coinage. And while most 1964 Lincoln pennies you find today are worth only a small premium over face value, the real excitement comes from condition and errors. Because with such high-speed production, mistakes were inevitable. Doubled dies-off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and die cracks can all be found. And in high grades, especially red, uncirculated examples with full original luster. These pennies can command strong prices from collectors who want the best possible representation of this historic year, and proof versions struck at the Philadelphia Mint. For collectors add another layer of interest with their mirror, like Field's sharp details and limited production compared to circulation strikes, making them a favorite among serious numismatists. And as the years passed, the legend of the 1964 penny only grew because people remembered it as the last year before change, the last calm moment before metal compositions shifted, vending machines were redesigned, and the sound of coins in your hand subtly changed forever. This penny became a symbol of the end of an era, even though it still looked the same. And that is what makes the 1964 Lincoln penny so powerful. It hides a massive story behind a familiar face. It teaches us that value is not always about rarity. Sometimes value is about meaning, context, and the moment in history when an object was created. And when you find a 1964 penny today in a drawer jar or old collection, you are not just finding a common coin. You are holding a witness to one of the most dramatic turning points in American monetary history, a year when the government fought to keep money moving when metal markets forced change, and when the future of U.S. coinage was quietly rewritten. And this is why collectors never stop talking about 1964, because this single date connects the past to the present and reminds us that even the smallest coin can carry the weight of a nation. If you enjoyed this deep dive, stay with coins, because this is just the beginning of the stories hiding in your pocket change.